Welcome to Shine Me a Light podcasts. In this series, The Last 27 Years, we go through the last 27 years in the life of one class of 95 Sydney Girls High School student, and this episode is Leah Darby.
Anyway, all right. So, because I've been doing so many of these and I haven't edited them because I've had no time, I don't really remember what is your story and what is other people's stories at this point.
And how can you remember everybody of 180
And that's
anyway?
Great. So it's all going to be new to me again. And then I'll go, oh, yeah, that's right, as I hear it. All right. So you went through all the way in Sydney Girls, did HSC.
I did. Yes.
What do you remember from those years?
Look, I remember, is it too little or way too much? I've got very, very fond memories of the junior years. And by the time I got to the senior years, of course, the HSC year was such a big year. And I put such a lot of effort into it, as did the majority of us, that I still remember it as the most painful year of my life, which is pretty good. But, I remember my first day of school, arriving at Sydney Girls High School from Clovelly Primary School, and I was so excited. I was so excited to be going to this new high school, on the bus. It was 20 minutes.
That was one of the best primary schools to come from, wasn't it? Because it had a few people.
Oh, I think there were 4 or 5 of us. It wasn't like Wallara School, which had 30, I can't remember.
Yeah, that's the one.
There were a few of us. We had Natasha Marshall, Karina Quinlan, and who else was there? Or maybe there was just 3 of us, unless I'm forgetting somebody, which is entirely possible. But, it was good to have a couple of people that we knew coming through.
Yeah.
And I had some friends at the boys' school as well, who I knew from, Clovelly, from the school or from the Clovelly area. And what I kind of liked the most, I wouldn't have put it into words at the time, but was the chance to reinvent myself. Yeah. So I was a fairly sporty kid growing up in Clovelly, loved the beach, loved swimming, loved, looking at the rock pools, loved a lot of outdoor activities. But by the time I got to year 6 in primary school, I was labelled as that girl who likes the library. And, I was that little bit intellectual. I loved books. I absolutely loved books. And it was really hard to be anything other than that girl who likes to read books in the library. And I remember going for, softball trials or netball trials, and pretty much the only sports for girls in those days were softball and netball. Yep. And I was actually naturally sporty and didn't do a bad job at the trials. But I always remember just never being picked for those teams because I just came across as the bookish, slightly nerdy one, which was, quite odd because I'd had a very sporty kind of upbringing. But anyway.
Yeah, it's funny. We have this obsessive need to categorise, don't we? You get pigeonholed. Can't be both.
That's it. But there was that bookish mentality, I guess, that got me a bit of extra help in year 5 and year 6 and passed the exam for Sydney Girls, and I was so excited. And the first thing I did was, try out for hockey, then try out for rowing and throw myself into sport. And I was able to be, amazingly academic and sporty at the same time. It was perfect.
So did you sort of find Sydney Girls had that balance between academics and sport?
For me, it did. I was very lucky, and there were sports there that I loved. Got right into, as I said, the hockey and rowing. Suited me down to the ground. Loved both sports, and I'm naturally sort of quite competitive, so I liked those competitive sports. That was good fun.
I think that's why I hated sport. I had no competitive instinct,
Yeah, I mean, to like it, you've got to feel
the competition. Where I would just feel the intensity rising. People want to do something. Oh, okay, I want to get out of here. You can have it.
And I'd sailed as a little kid, and I got back into sailing kind of later in life. But Sydney Girls High didn't exactly have
for sailing,
so that wasn't a choice. But otherwise that was fantastic. And I remember doing the Duke of Edinburgh. I got right into that. Got my medals.
I remember everyone going on that. Didn't one class group get lost? Was it our year?
Yeah, probably, yeah. I'm sure I got lost at least once or twice, but not really badly.
I think, yeah, there was
So
one.
we found our way back eventually.
I just remember there being one group, and I don't know if it was our year or not, but when we were there, who got lost, and that was overnight, and everybody was worried.
Yeah, and these were the days before, GPS and all those safety mechanisms that we take completely for granted now. Imagine us being off in the bush, no mobile phones, not that we'd have reception anyway, no GPS locators. We actually had old physical maps. Remember those?
Yeah.
Bushwalking
I couldn't use
maps
them
and things,
then.
and the charts. And we had to look at the topography. My goodness, these days the kids just probably follow some sort of
Yeah, I don't know if they
Who
do
knows?
it anymore that way.
I've got no idea.
And it would be odd for the kids if they did, because that's right, they're so used to using maps for everything.
Yeah,
Would
we
seem
had to
really
sort of say,
archaic.
there's that mountain range here, and here's this road, and we can see it on this old map. Oh no, we've lost part of our map because it was glued on with sticky tape, and there it goes, it's blown away. You know,
Such a different world.
but that was good fun.
That's sort of high school. And then when you did your HSC, and where did you go in 96?
1996, I went on not a complete gap year, but I had a couple of months out. So I went to Europe and got on a plane for a bit. I had a auntie living in Switzerland, and so I went to visit her and stayed with her for a couple of months. And Switzerland is a fantastic hub to explore Europe, so that was amazing. And I remember I actually didn't go to the Year 12 formal. I was so keen to get on a plane and get out of the country after the HSC. I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to give it that extra couple of weeks to go to the formal. I just wanted to get on a plane. So I missed out. But I don't know that I particularly regret it. I mean, it would have been a good day, I'm sure. But the formals back then, I think more's made of the formals now, from what I can hear.
I think that's more when you miss it that you feel like it's a big deal. Like the last couple of years with COVID, I've watched all the Year 12s that I work with really upset that they've missed their formal. But everyone who went to the formal is not really that, like it doesn't seem like such a big deal if you've done it. It's just because you missed it, I reckon.
Yeah, maybe. I wasn't particularly upset anyway. I was kind of glad to miss it and have that extra time overseas. Before the gap year became a big thing, I just really wanted to travel.
And there was no schoolies back then, was there? Like this school?
No, there wasn't any schoolies. I think a few of our group went off on the Fair Star, the fun ship or something, and sort of let the hair down a bit. But it wasn't a thing like it is now.
Yeah, I was just reading the other day how businesses on the Gold Coast are really upset that all these drunken teenagers are destroying their livelihood. And I was thinking, did we have that? I don't remember that.
No, we didn't have that. Or it was very nascent at the time.
Yeah, it's all organised online.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have phones. I had an Apple IIe, I think.
Yeah, we didn't have Facebook groups and...
No, we didn't. We didn't have any of that. We used to, when we met up on the weekend, we had to actually choose somewhere to meet and be there. Can you imagine?
Yeah, a taste, and if you got lost, you had to find a payphone. And who are you going to call?
Yes.
You can only call your parents and get them to call someone else's.
No, we had to. There was a number. We had to do a reverse charges call from a payphone to call home. So you'd go to a payphone, you'd put in some 4-digit number, then you'd call your landline, your parents'
say
landline.
Your name like you're in jail.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And they'd pick up, and do you remember sort of just have, if you're expecting somebody to call, you just have to hang around your home phone for sometimes hours.
Yeah, it's such
and I had three brothers, so to get hold of that home phone when it rang was actually really, really hard.
Oh, it just takes me back. I just remember we had the long cord so that you could take the phone into another room.
I'd have the long cord. We had the long cord that was so long. The cord was actually wrapped around one of those little phone holder devices, and you had to use a handle. If you've got a garden hose and you need to retract a garden hose with a handle, that's what our phone cord was like.
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think we just had a pile of cord. Oh, it's nuts though, isn't it? It's so different. I don't think it'd be funny to send a modern kid back in time. It's only 20-something years ago, but it's a different world.
Well, they'd adapt very quickly, but they'd miss the iPad. They'd miss the ability to just choose what they want to watch whenever they want to watch it.
The constant entertainment didn't exist. I remember I was allowed to watch a couple of TV shows a week, and I had to pick them from the paper TV guide.
Yes. And we were only allowed to watch the ABC.
And
it
I
was
remember
almost
a big
always
deal when I was allowed to
Inspector
watch
Gadget.
Henderson Kids. I don't know if that was
Yeah.
a big deal. But shivers, no, it's a long time ago. All right, so you went to Switzerland to start with, and then where'd you go in the whole gap year? Did you go around Europe, or did you stay in Switzerland?
Oh, look, it wasn't a whole gap year. It just felt like one. I think it was 3 or 4 months or something.
First
It
time.
was it was good fun. I think I went up to the Netherlands, spent some time in the UK, looked up a lot of obscure relatives because as a 17-year-old, those couple of nights of free accommodation were, that was great. And I'd look up these relations. I had this great uncle in Austria, for example, and we'd always grown up hearing stories of these relations. And so I was actually really keen to go and see them and meet them. So, and whenever I arrived, I went to see great uncle Percy, who lived on top of a mountain in Austria, and they gave me such a good time. Took me to restaurants, and then introduced me to one of their neighbours. Had some kids, and one of the girls was the same age as me, and we're friends to this day.
Did she speak English at the time? They do, don't
Yes,
they? Because they learn in school. Yeah.
Oh, they're so educated. It's amazing. And then she grew up to be a doctor, just like her father and her grandfather. They're a whole family of doctors.
Oh.
And, she's got 3 kids. And last time I went to Europe in 2019, I went to see her.
That's awesome.
Stayed with her for the weekend and still got that relationship. And sadly, the great uncle is no longer with us, but there's a bench with his name on it in the Attersee in Austria, and we made the voyage to go and sit on the bench with his name on it. So I felt really connected to him.
I want a speed hump with my name on it in my suburb.
Yeah, perfect.
I thought of the sign the other night when I couldn't sleep. It's going to say, dedicated to Alexis Howell, the only one that cares about TAFE students getting run over. The only one. And then, because of her, we have this speed hump instead of a dead body. I thought, that would satisfy me. I was almost going to spend $1,500 on dash cam just to show the council that I'm right and they're wrong. I realised how crazy I was halfway through this, and I'm not going to do it. But what would satisfy my partner? Said to me, "What would satisfy you?" And that would satisfy me. A speed hump dedicated to me. Anyway, I digress. Okay, so when you got back, had you applied for uni?
Yes, I'd applied. I'd been accepted into arts law at Sydney Uni, which was a big deal at the time.
Yep.
Courtesy of that terrible HSC year, just swatting away and getting through all those exams, doing all of those assignments, and buoyed by the great enthusiasm of our teachers. Particularly Mrs. Young, Shirley Young, the history teacher. She was just incredibly dedicated. Margaret Hargrave in English, Karen Moon in Latin. I was one of the 3-unit Latin students.
Oh, wow.
I remember choosing Latin because I thought, look, I didn't grow up speaking a second language except for a little bit of Estonian, as my mother's Estonian, but that wasn't really recognised.
No, it's a lost language now. I don't think they offer it at many schools. I think you've got to do it by distance if you want to study it now.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think they offer it at any school.
Yeah.
So that was no good. And I thought, look, any other language, there'd be any native speaker would have so much of a large advantage over you. There's kind of there's a point to obviously learning another language. But if you wanted to get really good marks, pick a dead language because nobody has that advantage over you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good.
So I picked Latin. It got ranked very well, and I got my offer for arts law at Sydney, which was great.
Ooh. And had you wanted to be a lawyer already? Was that like a dream or an idea?
Look, I did want to be a lawyer. I think I also wanted to be a journalist for a while. I also wanted to be a teacher. I mainly wanted to be a writer, but there wasn't any need to go through the HSC to do that. Look, law was fine. I loved my Latin and my English, and I loved reading. So put those 3 things together, and you've got a born lawyer. So
gotta love reading.
Gotta love reading,
and you got to read fast too.
You got to read very fast.
Yeah, I read really slow at the pace I speak. So getting through something like that would take me to Christmas holidays. All right. So, and you graduated, I'm assuming, and then what happened then?
Yeah, graduated, got through College of Law as well, got admitted to the Supreme Court, became a lawyer, decided, like many young lawyers, that I didn't particularly like the reality of being a lawyer, particularly the very long hours of the timesheets and the progress to becoming partner, etc. And I stepped sideways, completely sideways, and went into the corporate world, which which in amongst the legal fraternity is seen as, very much soiling one's hands by dealing with, matters of commerciality. So I got my hands dirty, rolled up the sleeves, and became a sort of corporate executive in the sort of ASX small caps space. So by my early 30s, I was running a company on ASX, very much not the ASX top 100, but one of the small caps. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Lots of travel, um, and so on. So tearing around the world quite a lot, meeting with investors and running the company.
Awesome.
It was great. Not something that I'd ever contemplated, but something that I sort of fell into.
I don't think it's in the childhood understanding of law. Like, they don't make shows on it, and it's not the Grisham books,
Yeah,
That's what I knew
exactly,
about law, was Law and Order and John Grisham.
Yeah, you can have great highs and then you can have huge lows, because the global financial crisis, hit, of course, a couple of years in, managed to weather that, but it was, quite hard work. And then you've got all these investors on your back and so on. And everyone wants their pound of flesh. And it's very much a kind of 24/7 type of job. You can't really step out and have a weekend. Yeah. And at the back of my mind, I was thinking, well, what about a family? Because you can wait and wait and wait, but there's a point at which you can't wait much longer. You'll miss the cutoff. So we managed to just scrape in, and we've got a little daughter who's 4 years old now.
Oh wow! And that's your okay. That's where my daughter's 6, and that's my second. I had one very young. Who's now
I remember hearing that. Yes, and that would be great as well in a way, to get it over with early.
Yeah. But having one foot in each camp is bad, I'll tell you. I realise, because I've been doing it already for 20 years, and I've got another, 15 to go.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, too much.
Well, that's changed everything. Look, I remember when I was pregnant, you have that midwife visit at about 6 months pregnant or something.
Yeah.
So the OB sends her around, so she comes to the house, and we were living in a lovely flat in Elizabeth Bay at the time, kind of overlooking the harbour and Rushcutters Park, and she comes in, and I'm kind of working away. I was working at home that day because I had the visit with her, and she sort of sat down with me, and I think she might have made herself a cup of tea or something, because I was too busy taking a conference call. And then when she managed to sit me down, she said, "Oh, have you thought about what will happen after you have the baby?" And I said, "Oh, what do you mean will happen? Things will just carry on as normal."
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, no, but have you really thought about it? Because things might change for you. What are you planning to do with the baby when it arrives?" And I said, "Oh, I haven't given it a huge amount of thought, but I suppose I assumed that the baby will, I'll breastfeed the baby, and so when the baby's hungry, I'll simply breastfeed it and carry on working on my laptop." And she looked at me, so yeah, and she kind of looked at me in this kind of quizzical way, and she was a very friendly, lovely person, and she said, "Look, you might find that you need a little bit of help once it all actually happens, and that you might want to sort of think about engaging a nanny or something if you really feel that you have to go back to work this early." And I said, "Oh, what do you mean going back to work? I'm not planning to stop work. I'm too busy. I'm too busy to stop."
Wow.
And so that was...
Must be very funny having those appointments from her perspective,
Yeah, it was so funny. It was so funny because it made it, suddenly here's the baby, here's this newborn, and then suddenly this took over my life.
Yeah. They don't adhere to any schedule that you have pre-planned for them. Yeah.
No, my priorities turned upside down, and what I really wasn't expecting was, of course, you assume you'll love your baby, etc., but I thought the baby would just slot right into my life. I didn't expect my whole life to change that drastically. And I found myself not wanting to put the baby into care. I didn't want to drop the baby off at a daycare in her first year or even her second year. I actually wanted that baby to be right next to me.
I know.
It's a very strange compulsion.
And begins the
Well, a very
lifetime
natural compulsion, I should say.
of mom guilt. It never ends.
Yeah.
That's
So I think I had a nanny 2 or 3 days a week, but I actually wanted to be right with our daughter from the start. And I didn't want to be away from her, and this has enormously affected my corporate career.
Yeah, as it does. And that's the main. I think we talked about this last time, but I was reading it was the number one reason for the wage gap over the lifetime. So,
yes.
Yeah, women.
So we can just blame our hormones.
Have that interruption to their career and then when you get back, men are already so far ahead of you that you never catch up before retirement age. Is the research?
Yeah. Well, I absolutely had the choice. I could have had more care. There are those daycares out there also that take the kids from a very early age. I had some friends, enroll their kids full time at six months in daycare.
Yeah.
But I absolutely, when it came down to it, I just couldn't contemplate it.
It's a really it's a tough thing. I think when I had my first, I had the same delusion that he was just gonna, well, didn't know it was gonna be he, but yeah, baby in my life will carry on. Then when I realized that wasn't going to happen, and I was desperate to establish myself because I was in my early 20s, I put him into daycare, thinking, and then when he goes to school, I'll get a full-time job. But he was special needs. That never happened. Then he's an adult. I got the second one, and I thought the same thing. And put her into daycare from 12 months to do a master's, and now she's got special needs, and I'm still basically in the same position I was in 20 years ago. Oh wow! So no plans work out necessarily.
Yeah, you have to learn to be flexible.
Yep, 100%.
Even if you're not naturally terribly flexible. So,
it's like this has been a lifetime of being beaten into submission around flexibility. Oh, funny.
But ironically, just with COVID, there's a greater acceptance of flexible working now, but to a point, to a point.
But it is an improvement, 100%. And how did COVID sort of affect your family?
Oh, look, it wasn't ideal. You almost feel like you shouldn't complain because so many people had it much worse. We all got COVID, but not too badly. We hosted a New Year's Eve party, which was our downfall.
Last New Year's Eve?
Last year, just when it was all kind of hissing again, and COVID was getting back into the papers.
Yeah.
And we were down in South Australia, and then there was this news of kind of COVID emerging again, and talk of potential more lockdowns and so on. And we'd planned to come back and host a New Year's Eve party, so of course we couldn't stay in South Australia. We had to come back home, and we really should have just made a better decision because we came back, had actually a great New Year's party, and a couple of days later, our guests sort of phoned up to say, "Oh, really, really sorry, but." They're COVID positive, and they may well have been positive at the time of our party. They all stayed overnight, etc. It was great fun. And we kind of thought, oh no. And at the time, we had to go into isolation for a week. So there we were in the house, middle of summer, just, sitting in the house. Got through the isolation and thought, oh my God, this is great. Now we can go away. So we booked an Airbnb or something up the coast. Got there, 24 hours in, I started feeling sick. Thought, oh no. And then, do you remember when PCRs were really hard to get and rat tests were really hard to come by, or whatever, and all this driving around and queuing? So annoying. Managed to get a hold of a couple of rats or something. Oh, there we go. I'm COVID positive. I thought, oh no. So I had to leave the holiday house. Got home. Time to go into isolation again for another week, and then the timing was just the opposite of impeccable because I was in ISO for a week. Then exactly a week later, husband got the COVID, and so isolation for a week. And then a week after that, the daughter got the COVID. So we had a week in isolation, and then 3 weeks in a row in isolation with one or the other of us getting sick. So, and not too sick. And like I said, I feel like we really shouldn't complain compared to when looking at what.
Yeah, they reckon there's hundreds of thousands of Australians now living with long COVID.
Yeah, and all that happened to me, I had some weird symptoms that went on for months. I lost my taste for wine.
Oh.
which was quite unfortunate. I've got a bit of a wine cellar. Used to love wine, but it took a long time for my taste to come back. But it was actually quite good for my waistline because I stopped drinking. What could I do? And I lost my taste for coffee for a while.
Oh, wow. Like
Yeah.
you couldn't taste it at all? Or it
No,
tasted gross?
or it couldn't taste it, couldn't smell it,
Wow.
didn't want it. So it was this enforced detox thanks to COVID.
Oh, I
But
guess
I'm actually glad to have those enjoyments back in my life.
Oh, well, I stopped drinking alcohol a few years ago and, yeah, I'd never linked it to weight gain, Like I just never made that connection until I stopped.
Yeah, a lot of calories in a glass of wine,
Because when
sure.
when you're young, it doesn't
matter. You're on the dance floor or whatever. It doesn't matter.
So when I started drinking, I didn't gain weight. Therefore, there's no connection.
No.
Go age. All right. So in your spare time, because now you have, what do you do?
Oh, look, I still love reading. I'm still a bookworm. I've now got a Kindle, but I've still got a lot of books. And do love sailing. So whenever I've got a chance, I'm out on the water. I'm a member of the Royal Sydney Yacht Squadron, and I've been lucky enough to get out recently on Tuesday nights. This is Tuesday night twilight, which has a female helm, and there's a lot of women on the water on Tuesday night. So it's a great night to be
awesome.
out. Yeah.
Really awesome.
No, it's really good. So I'd say sailing and reading and travel. Still love travel and exploring new places in the world.
You can travel again since last year.
Well, we're planning to go overseas again next year, so we'll see how we go.
Yeah. Plans.
I'd written two things down to bring up if there was an opportunity. First of all, I've got this memory. Do you remember Mrs. Klooster, the year advisor?
Yes. Yes, I do. I remember her hair and eyes.
Yeah, because I was thinking, big, bright, big hair and big, bright eyes. And I'll never forget it. She said she was giving us this talk on sexual education, and she particularly wanted to talk to us about chlamydia. And she said, girls, I never want you to forget this. And then she actually got up on the table. She got up on the table and she did a tap dance. And I'll never forget her hair flying everywhere, her clothes flying everywhere, tap dancing on the table. And I'm thinking, oh my God, is she going to break the table? Is she going to come tumbling down? And this whole idea was that we would never forget about chlamydia and to be and to have safe sexual health. This was her message, and I never forgot it.
Oh wow! Yeah, I got kicked out of that class very early in the session.
Did you?
As soon as we started putting a condom on a banana, I started calling out all these different names for a penis, and I remember saying lump sausage.
Oh my goodness!
And I got asked to leave. I never got any more sexual education. So I missed that.
Well, I never thought it would be something I'd bring up at a podcast, but she was successful in leaving a lasting impression.
What was the other dot point?
Oh, the other dot point was the Sydney Zoo, because there was an exhibit on at the museum last year, and I went by to see it, and it just showed the parade of animals, all the elephants and giraffes and rhinos and whatever was at Sydney Zoo when it was at the Sydney Girls High School site at Surrey Hills, and all the animals actually walked in pairs, just like out of Noah's Ark, from the school to Circular Quay, and then they boarded ferries to complete their journey to Taronga.
Oh, isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
and they're all walking that land, probably before there were dinosaurs.
Yeah, and I thought, how extraordinary. And then, of course, when we were at Sydney Girls, there was the bear pit, and there were these remnants of the old zoo. And I used to love thinking of it as a zoo, because, of course, it still was a zoo in some ways.
Yeah, and we had ibises.
We certainly had ibises, bin chickens everywhere.
But that's true. We would say the bear pit, that word. I think I said that for a couple of years before it dawned on me that there might be a bear pit. Yeah. Bear pit.
Yeah.
What an awful place for a bear to live when you think about it.
Well, I'm sure the bears are much happier at Taronga and much nicer view.
Thanks so much for taking the time to participate in this series, Leah. I really appreciate it. We're coming towards the end, and it's a shame, but it's a fabulous collection of stories to have, and it's great to have yours as a part of it. Thanks, Leah.